Good evening. On behalf of the BCCF, welcome all to this virtual town hall session on finance and the coming choral season. My name is Ron Hagerman, and I serve as the BCCF Treasurer. I am pleased to be introducing the panelists and this session to you tonight. The BCCF acknowledges with gratitude that we live, work, and sing on the traditional and largely unceded territories of nearly 200 Indigenous nations whose rich cultural heritage surrounds us every day. We also thank the University of Victoria through Dr. Adam Kahn for providing this Zoom access for these town hall sessions. The purpose of this session is to look at the impact of COVID-19 on the finances and future planning for choirs. Riding out this storm together, albeit all in separate boats. Our presenters this evening are Ed Schneider. Now, Ed Schneider has had over a 40-year career as an accountant, lecturer, and tax specialist. He spent 25 years with Canada Revenue Agency, or Revenue Canada, and for the last 15 years as a tax consultant practicing in Penticton in the beautiful BC wine country. He also has a lifelong interest in the fine and performing arts, including 8 sessions with the Vancouver Cantata Singers, and is founder of the Many Hats Theatre Company in Penticton, now in its 13th season. Ed was treasurer of the BCCF prior to my arrival, from its inception until 2015. Linda Dier has had an extensive career in education as a classroom teacher of kindergarten through grade 12, and as an administrator for the school and district levels. Her lifelong love of singing and piano playing came back into force when she moved to Nanaimo in 2003. 4 years later, she co-founded Nanaimo Sings, an organization consisting of 16 local community choirs. In her current capacity as chair of Nanaimo Sings, she works with a team of singers and choir directors to produce choral events and promote collaboration between choirs. She also sings with an a cappella plus, a 17-voice mixed ensemble that loves to celebrate the joy of song. Nina Horvath is an active musician in the Vancouver music scene, whether it's on stage or behind the scenes. She is currently the executive director for the Vancouver Bach Choirs. She's starting her career as a pianist. She has collaborated with artists across the continent with special focus on vocal and brass music. She continues to work with the students at the Vancouver Academy of Music and freelances through the Vancouver area. In university, she discovered her love of choral music and is fortunate to spend so much of her time immersed in this world. In addition to her administrative work, she currently sings as an alto with the Vancouver Cantata Singers. Willi Zwozdesky has served as the executive director for the British Columbia Choral Federation since 2005. He shares a virtual office with 3 contractors and works with a 28-member province-wide board of directors and a number of other volunteers who serve on various BCCF committees. Through his work with the BCCF, he's also a board member of Choral Canada. Along with his career in arts administration, Willi Zwozdesky is widely known for his work as a choral conductor, clinician, arranger, publisher, and partner in the global print music industry. He is completing his 39th season conducting the Vancouver Men's Chorus. And now, ladies and gentlemen, our town hall meeting will commence.
Thank you very much, Ron. And thanks to our presenters and to all of our listeners from across the province. I'm very happy to say that our panel covers Vancouver Island, it covers the Okanagan region, and of course, the Lower Mainland. So I think we're fairly well represented. Obviously, there's been a lot of cancellations, and as a result, a lot of administrative housekeeping that's had to go on in these past couple of months since we had the shutdown. And of course, as we know, the information keeps changing daily. So whatever we talk about this evening, I'm sure will have changed, and we'll have another point of view in a couple of days or a couple of minutes, who knows. Fortunately, we know a lot more now that we're 3 months into this pandemic. We actually have a sense of how the government agencies are responding, how our choristers are responding, how we as individuals are responding to all of those things. And I've got to say that it's amazing to see the resilience and all of the creativity that has come forward from the choral community specifically. It's utterly amazing. I'm sure that you're all overwhelmed with the amount of information that we have out there. So I would like to start by saying thank you for sending in your questions. We used your questions to formulate our agenda for this evening. So thank you very much for doing that. The way that we've structured the session this evening is that we're going to do some of the sort of top-down stuff, talking about some federal points, some provincial government points, things, the legislations that concern all of us at some sort of different level. And then we'll get down to the more local level of our individual choirs and organizations, talking about budgeting, and then of course, talking about moving forward. So I want to let you know that this session is being recorded so that you'll be able to come back to it. You may have even gone back to some of the previous sessions that we've done. This is now the third one. So this is being recorded and it will be available on the BCCF website after a bit. And also we are posting some resources, some listings, some documents and so on and so forth that you'll be able to see after the session as well. So we'll be referring to those. So to start us off, I'm going to turn to our friend Ed Schneider, who has extensive work in a history with CRA and so on and so forth. And if you don't mind, let's just launch straight into just talking a little bit about maintaining our charitable status and so on and so forth.
Thank you, Willi, and thank you, Ron, for the introduction. Yes, maintaining your status is extremely important. Having looked through the list of registrants, I see that there's a very wide variety of different sizes and types of organizations. And so some of the comments may not apply to you. If you need more information, there is going to be a resource sheet posted. They'll give you, Willi will give you details on that later. And my email address will be on there. Feel free to contact me, no charge for BCCF members. But we are going to talk about status. Status is extremely important. For organizations that are in fact registered with the province of BC as a society, there is an annual report you have to do, and we must not lose sight of that in our financial controls, which again, we're going to talk about that in more in depth a little bit later. But if you are then registered as a charity with the Canada Revenue Agency, there are also reports that have to be done for them. And obviously you have to have the financial information to go with them. This is a stressful time for all of us. You're not performing, you're not rehearsing, and you're probably meeting with your boards virtually as we are doing this session. But I think it's important that you take the time to make sure that everything else is in order. The one question that came up a number of times, and I think we need to address it because it is very important, having spent a long time at CRA as an auditor and an audit manager, and that is the issuance of your charitable receipts. The question has come up repeatedly as to being able to, for example, forgive a part of the dues, or, I'll pay you all my dues, but give me a charity receipt for it. There's a caution there, and CRA can be extraordinarily sticky about this, and that is if there's any kind of a benefit that accrues to you as a result of that payment, other than the deep gratitude of the organization, it isn't a charitable donation. In other words, if they still receive something, for example, they say, well, I'll forego my dues, just give me, we're not rehearsing, we're not performing, just give me a receipt, a charitable receipt for the charitable tax credit. And but then they continue to receive something for, say, example, your newsletter or virtual rehearsals or something like that. CRA could challenge that and say that in fact you have given them a benefit, and so there has been something in turn received for the amount that they're wanting to be considered as a charitable donation. What I would suggest is that if you, and I know it's a pain in the you-know-what, but if you just exchange checks, in other words, they say, I'm going to pay you my $50 of dues, and then, but then I'm going to give you 2 checks, and one of those checks will be a donation, and you give me a check, or you give me a receipt for the $25 for the additional amount. CRA, I've said this 1,000 times, and it's funny, but it's also deadly serious. They love bits and pieces of paper. And if you have something to prove that in fact you wrote a check to them as a donation, then in fact you would be very, very much within your comfort level to issue them a charitable receipt. I know this only applies to the groups that are registered as charities, but it is very important. If you lose your charitable status, it's very, very, very difficult to get it back. And I think that's about all I have to say on that topic, Willi.
And that is a lot to say on that topic. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I hope that people who are listening are taking a couple of notes on that point. So with regard to the provincial legislations and so on and so forth, many of our organizations, of course, have been going online for their annual general meetings. This is then also means that hopefully you've got your financial statements organized. And also, excuse me, that you're taking care of your society report, your list of your new directors and so on and so forth. Just these are all little check marks that we want to make sure that we've got going organizationally, just to take care of that. On the topic, though, of government-related things, there's been a lot of discussion, of course, about the various subsidy programs and stuff that are available. And Nina, with the Vancouver Bach Choirs, has got some experience with these areas, and so she's agreed to talk to us about them. Nina, would you like to launch off into this subject, please?
I sure would. I hope you're ready for some acronyms. So I'm sure that we've all kind of been bombarded with the various different options from government subsidies. So I just wanted to give a really quick run through of some of the options that are there. And I will just give a brief disclaimer that I think we all know that this information is changing constantly. So what I'm about to tell you is up to date as of this afternoon, but your best bet always, if you are interested in looking into these options, is to go to the Government of Canada website, and they've done a very good job of laying this all out and being quite clear about it. So a lot of these, unfortunately, also will depend on the size of your organization and your capacity and whether you have enough going on to be eligible. In particular, a lot of them require that you have people on staff who are employees, so meaning that you're paying source deductions on them to the government. If you have contractors, most of this won't apply. So one of the ones that we've heard a lot about in the news is the CEWS, which provides the emergency wage subsidy. So you can apply for this if you're a nonprofit or as a charity or as a small business. And that covers up to 75% of the wages for your employees, again, not for your contractors. And this is calculated based on how much your revenue dropped during certain periods. And it's also just been extended to the end of August. So it is still available to be applied for. If you don't have employees, one thing that you can take advantage of is the business loan. So this is a CEBA. And so this one you apply to directly through your bank, and you can get up to $40,000 as an interest-free loan. And it is interest-free. I think you need to pay it back within the first 2.5 years in order to keep that interest-free rate. The fun thing about it, though, is that if you do pay it back in its entirety before December 2022, they will forgive up to $10,000 of that loan. So in a way, you can it's like getting a sneaky grant basically in there. If you do have a commercial landlord, you have the options of the KECRA, which you cannot apply for yourself, but you should certainly encourage your landlord to apply for, because this could allow you to get a reduction in your rent of up to 75% for the eligible months. And of course, for a lot of you who are contractors, and if you've lost a lot of work, I would assume that by now a lot of you know about CERB, which has also just been extended to the end of August. So if your income has been severely reduced and you're now making under $1,000 a month, you can apply for the subsidy, which will give you an additional $2,000 a month potentially. I also wanted to just talk a little bit about the $500 million that our Prime Minister promised to go towards arts and sports, and which is being distributed through Canada Heritage. So this is being distributed in 2 different phases, and the first phase is ongoing right now. And that this phase is really only going to be applicable if you're an organization that already gets money through Canada Council for operating, or an equivalent type of organization. However, they have said that in phase 2, which is yet to be announced, there may be some options for other groups to be able to apply to access this funding, but that isn't, there's no detail about that yet. So you're just going to have to watch the Canada Heritage website to find that. And I was trying to think about sort of other sources that you can find. If you're looking for funding right now, there's some things like Canada Council's Digital Strategy Fund that you could use, and they've pivoted towards things that are more specific towards COVID. And then, of course, there's a lot of foundations right now that have also started to look at supporting organizations affected by COVID. And it's very nice that one of the our foundation databases right now, called Grant Connect, is currently being offered for free. And I think we'll give you the link for that. So they keep extending that. Initially, it was only for free until like the end of April, but it's going to the end of June for sure right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if they extend that even further. And outside of that, I would recommend, look at your local sources for funding, like local credit unions, local arts councils. As I was looking around, I know like Columbia Basin Trust has some offerings and even has an advisors program that you can contact them and they'll sort of help guide you through this process.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Also, in the sort of formality of our businesses, the topic of insurance has come up quite a bit. The British Columbia Choral Federation offers an umbrella insurance. We have an umbrella insurance policy, which our member choirs sign up for. This is one of our more popular services, and it's quite a good deal. If you haven't checked it out, I would encourage you to do so. The questions that had been coming to us, though, I actually put to our insurer. And so I did a kind of a summary for you. Again, this is a resource that is going to be published on our website together with the other links and so on and so forth, where we talk about this specifically. We are insured by G&K Insurance. It's Wawanesa, but their broker is G&K Insurance. And our agent there, just sort of says that certainly it's recommended that choirs follow the guidelines, of course, that the government has laid out for us. You want to make sure that you're staying within those kinds of guidelines and so on and so forth. We are definitely living in unpredictable times, of course. And so it's certainly recommended that you don't let your insurance lapse if you have insurance. A lapse in insurance, or a gap, that's what she referred to it as a gap in insurance, can be a red flag for insurers. So, for example, if your choir is already insured under the BCCF umbrella program, and you've elected not to renew at this moment, it may be easier for you to get back onto that program at some later time than it would be, say, to start anew. We don't yet know what the effect on the insurance industry is going to be of the pandemic, but we can imagine that it will be. There will be an effect. So a gap, for example, could be an issue. For example, insurers might be concerned that they don't want to be responsible for something that happened in between one policy and the beginning of another. It's also a bit of a red flag for insurers because it may call into question the financial strength of your organization as well. So you want to be careful there. There were a couple of COVID-19 specific notes. We went directly to Wawanesa Insurance, and this document is going to be published on our website for you to have a look at so you can see. But I will just read a little quote from them. This was Wawanesa writing to our insurance broker saying, quote, "For policyholders who have purchased our commercial general liability coverage, this policy form has no pandemic exclusion. Therefore, coverage will respond to allegations of negligence related to the pandemic, subject to the terms and conditions of the policy wording." It's quite likely that after the term of this policy, however, that will change. But we are currently in a place where people who have this policy should be in good stead if something happens. Even if you stopped operating, by the way, the insurance people also give us a little bit of a warning, just saying that, for example, if you have a web presence and social media presence, even though you're not performing or rehearsing, um, you will, if your policy is active, it will certainly provide coverage for personal and advertising injury like libel or slander or something like that. An optional feature of the BCCF insurance policy is very valuable. It's called the Directors and Officers Liability Insurance. This is for your board members so that they will have some sort of insurance in case your organization actually is sued for some sort of mismanagement or something like that. It's probably no time like the present to make sure that your director's liability insurance is up. Nina was also referring in her earlier thing about people who have actual offices, a physical plant. Some of you may have storage lockers. Some of us have, I don't know what else might you have. Music library, for example. So physical things that you have insured. Again, so you're going to want to be, just make sure that you still got that done in case of something crazy like water damage or whatever. You don't want that to happen. And I will say that I would encourage you to check out the rates. We do have an insurance thing that I will send to you if you're interested in connecting up with us on this specific topic. I'm happy to do that. I think you'll find that it's better than competitive, I would say. So anyway, so there's a couple of notes from our insurer. And as I said, this stuff is all actually already up, not already, it will be up on our website very soon after this. Okay, so the other part of the insurance topic was around waivers. These would be waivers for choristers and maybe waivers for people attending performances. There's a whole new culture developing around this. We have spent a little bit of time trying to get some pro bono advice from a lawyer, and I'm happy to tell you that I've got somebody now working with me on behalf of the BC Choral Federation. So I'm hopeful that we will be able to develop a document that you can then use as a template for your own organization. Really, this is, it may not be so much legally binding as much as it is due diligence. I think it just really speaks well of our organizations if we're taking care of our members in this way, if we're taking care of our audiences in this way as well. So another opinion that was shared recently at the Choral Canada board meeting that I just attended, one of the lawyers representing one of the other provincial choral organizations said pretty specifically that they didn't think that a waiver would actually be worth a lot. So, I mean, I'm not exactly sure where this is going to go. But please know that we are working on a waiver. We do have a real lawyer who is working with me now on this, and we're going to do it. Our neighbors in Alberta, by the way, have also got a waiver form that they're prepared to share with us. So we may also share that. And again, I think these documents are not meant to be taken wholesale. I think they're meant to be guidelines for yourselves as you make your own waivers, whatever form that might actually take. Okay. So that's the long and scary topic of insurance, which I know nobody wants to talk about or think about, but I think it's better for us to be prepared and have our wits about us with regard to that. All right, we would like to move into a little bit more direct finance and operations information. Clearly, we are finding new ways to do business at this time. And our friend Linda Dier, who is patiently waiting for us in Nanaimo, has some stuff to offer on this. So Linda, would you like to start with this?
Thanks, Willi. As Willi has said, the whole COVID-19 crisis has put budget development into disarray. And when we look at budget development for the season ahead, it's not at all what we're used to. We're moving into a season marked by a lot of changes and full of question marks. Same storm, different boats. When it comes to budget development and choir management, there is no one size fits all. The budget and development process will be unique to your group. This is the time to be creative, realistic, and perhaps most importantly, Collaborative. Discussion with stakeholders, your board, your executive, your singers, and perhaps key members of your audience base is a critical first step to budget development for the season ahead. A forward-looking discussion will provide an opportunity for people to hear from each other and think together about what is important and what's possible for your group. It will keep people connected and engaged with the choir. It will serve to strengthen the group and build commitment to the success of plans that are ultimately developed. So what do we need to discuss? Will we delay the start of our season and hope that by spring we can be fully operational again? Will we forget about concerts for now and focus on maintaining our singing voices and keeping members involved musically and socially? Will we prepare virtual or other kinds of online performances? Will we rehearse in person, in small groups, bubbles, ensuring that all safety precautions as outlined by provincial health are followed? Will we prepare virtual and other kinds of online performances? And will we offer outdoor performances observing safety precautions? There's a lot to think about in thinking ahead to the season ahead. So the budget we prepare needs to reflect both practical needs and the group's values. Operational needs and activities and projects that you want to do. It's important to start with operations budget because you can leave the activities and projects to a later discussion. To do the operations budget, you need to take stock of your group's basic needs. With no income from projects or activities, what does an operational budget look like? What are the bare essentials needed to keep your organization afloat? What's essential? Where can things be trimmed? Make it a goal to get a break-even budget on your operations so that you'll be free to explore new projects and activities on a case-by-case basis without worrying about your bottom line. In thinking about revenues, what's your current financial position? Is there money going to be carried forward from last season? Is there money coming in? Savings, investments, endowments, sponsorships, grants? We're going to talk about grants in a little while. Think about membership fees. How does choir membership look going forward? What are the benefits? Be careful not to devalue membership in your choir because it's worth as much now as it ever was, and perhaps even more so because of the connection that it affords to your group. Thinking about expenses, salaries, venue rentals, insurance, office expenses. Rehearsals are going to look different. What will be the expenses involved in that? Will they be online or will they be shorter and in person? How is that all going to look for you? When your operations budget is completed, you may find yourself in the position of having to find sources of funding to increase your revenues in order to have a break-even operational budget. And fundraising is a topic that we'll be talking about in a little while. Thinking about projects and special activities, if we can't offer concerts, what can we do instead? As choirs wrestle with this question, innovative solutions for projects and special activities are being found daily. We're hearing about high-quality videos being developed and online concerts. Previous recordings found in choir archives are being used with images overlaid to relay a message. Virtual choirs are springing up all over, and outdoor singing activities are being planned with safety protocols in place. This is a time when money that was previously spent on concert expenses can be repurposed and used for things like software and equipment and hiring the technical expertise that you need to produce high-quality videos and virtual performances. A budget should be developed for each project or activity. Project budget should look only at expenses and revenues related to that project. So then a break-even operations budget will not be affected. If a project that you do doesn't generate revenue, it makes no difference to your bottom line. And it's just good news if it does generate revenue. A final thought on budget preparation for the season ahead. It's important to develop a contingency plan to allow for flexibility if the situation changes. Explore different scenarios. For example, the possibility of being able to do a live concert in the spring. Wouldn't that be a concept? Develop parallel budgets to support the different scenarios, and in that way you'll be prepared when the situation changes. It's a good idea to base these budgets on smaller choir numbers right now, because there's likely to be some singer attrition just because of the pandemic. It's a good idea also to start now to plan out for recruiting singers as you reestablish yourself when you get to the other side of the pandemic. You need to keep looking forward, we need to stay optimistic, and we need to keep smiling as we move forward. And Nina, I think you had something that you were going to say about existing contracts with upcoming performers. Am I right about that?
Yeah, we were going to chat about that a little bit. I mean, I trust at this point a lot of you have probably already had to, unfortunately, address existing contracts and what to do with them. I mean, you know, unfortunately or fortunately, force majeure will be your friend. If you don't know what force majeure is at this point, it's a clause often added into performance-based contracts that essentially states that when a party cannot perform the contract due to circumstances beyond its control, then you're not obligated financially. So, you know, usually in a contract that's typically listed as something like an earthquake or a flood or a fire. But pandemics also count for force majeure for sure. So if you had contracts with people in place for next year, hopefully you had something like that in place. If you didn't, hopefully there was some other language within the contracts that would, you know, sort of release you from those financial obligations. And if you don't have that, or you have oral agreements, etc., you know, talk to people, especially things like venues. They're all kind of in the same spot. I know with like our church venues, for example, they've all been very understanding about shifting contracts or forgiving things or moving things around, because we're all kind of in the same boat and figuring this out together. And then, you know, moving forward, if you are trying to make new contracts, I think we're all going to be looking at our contracts again to make sure that they're just really secure now these days, and that we have to take into account that there's a lot of things that we hadn't been considering before.
Very true, very true. Linda, I love your parallel budget thing a lot, by the way. I think that's very good. Like, you know, do scenario A and do scenario B. I think that's really good. We had some discussion about new initiatives and explaining some of these things to, you know, funders and stakeholders. Can you just spend a little minute just talking about that, the new initiatives notion, and what we need to do to persuade people to get on board with them?
Sorry, Willi, I was having trouble. You were breaking up a bit. Were you asking me that question?
I was. Sorry. It was about explaining to our funders and our stakeholders what some of the new initiatives are in our budget that we want to do that we may not have done before. It's about getting these people on board.
Right. Okay. If your group has received money for this season, it's important that you reach out to the funders and the sponsors that provided that money to find out what their expectations are with the disruption due to COVID-19. For example, the city of Nanaimo offers operational grants as well as project grants. And what they've decided with operational grants is that organizations that have received money for operations can retain that money, and they're being asked to make very careful and concise records about activities, projects, and things that have had to be canceled because of COVID-19, and they want to have a reporting done on that in the next season coming up, the grant funding season. Choirs that have received money for projects and special programs that have had to be canceled are being told that they should hang on to the money that they've already spent for those programs. Even though it's had to be canceled, you've spent the money, but they're saying that choirs need to return the money that has not been spent from that. Now, I thought that was pretty interesting, and when I talked to the folks here about that, I was pleased to discover that when choirs have been able to come back to them in the past 3 months saying, you know, we can't do the live event that we had planned because of COVID-19, but we've got another plan instead. Can we use the money to do the same thing in a different way, or to do something that's completely different but will still meet the needs that we had when we applied for the project grant in the first place. And at this end, the people here are saying, yeah, for sure, use the money. If you need to, if you can use it to do something in a different way, by all means do that. So I think that what we all need to do is reach out to the people that we apply to for funding and sponsorships. And I think now is the time to be doing that. Talk to them, let them know what we're facing in the choral world and the choral community. What is it that we can't do anymore that we used to be able to do? And what are we thinking that we can do instead to keep moving forward? I think we need to help the people that are making decisions about funding to understand what it is that we're up against and how we're managing it. And if we can explain to them what it is that we're on about, my guess is they're going to be able to take the time to figure out what the new parameters for funding applications might be. But I do think that this is the time to be reaching out to them, because typically, in my experience, the funding applications happen anytime between now and fall, the end of October, and it's a good time to be talking to folks now and letting them do the thinking that needs to happen.
I would just emphasize one point that Linda made within there, is that I think it's very important that you keep track of how COVID has affected your organization, and whether that's financially, spiritually, however, that yeah, a lot of granting bodies really want to know that information going forward.
Agreed. You know, it just calls to mind the survey that we did with across Canada with Choral Canada, and just about 200 choirs in British Columbia responded back in April when that survey was actually done. And I just want to make a note that we're doing, there will be another survey to follow, probably sometime in the fall, in September or so. So the tracking that Nina is talking about, some people had already done that in the earlier period when they could see that the cancellations were sort of happening. Now we're beginning to realize what the next round of implications of all of that are going to be. So, okay, well, that's great. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Ed, we were talking a bit earlier about donations and stuff, but that was just generally, that was just specific to donations of membership fees like dues, that kind of thing. Is there anything further about that?
Well, you could also have donations if someone had purchased a ticket or tickets and season tickets. Part of that could be, you know, like, oh, I don't want, we can't have the concert, so can I have a, so the same answer would apply to that. But I think we were also talking about virtual tickets, and is this an appropriate time to delve into that?
Sure, absolutely.
One of the things we were talking about was fundraising. And one of the fundraising ideas that I am aware of several arts organizations that have done this, and that is you have a basic, most of us have a basic mailing list that we contact on a regular basis through Constant Contact or MailChimp or something like that. And do a very carefully worded, hi, we're in trouble. If you love us, can you help us? Sort of fundraising thing. I'm sorry, yeah, how else can you say it? You love us. The other thing is we had talked about ticketing for virtual events, and there are ways of doing this. I do not profess to be an expert. Please don't write. But there are ways to do it. I've actually attended a play where you actually bought a ticket, and when you got your ticket, you got a virtual password, and at a certain time you went and then logged on. It was a very Zoom-like meeting, sort of like a Zoom meeting, I should say. And yeah, that actually worked. Exactly how it worked, I don't know. Again, you'd need to find a techie person to tell you that. But my only point in this is that it does exist.
Sure. Very good. Okay. And Linda, there was some discussion in what you were saying about sponsorships, just in general. Any particular sources or anything that you were thinking of in regard of that?
No particular sources that I can add around sponsorships. I think the same thing would apply for them as applies for talking to funding organizations. When you're talking to the folks about giving money, if you love us, give us money. They need to understand what it is that you're on about and what it is that you're up against and what you need. I do think, though, that there is an organization that is worth taking a look at for not-for-profit societies, and that's an organization called Canada Helps. It's a not-for-profit society itself that deals only with not-for-profit societies and gives an opportunity for those societies to put a profile up on their page. Then when you have your profile on the page, it gives you the opportunity to take advantage of various fundraising opportunities that they have available. For instance, donations, monthly or a one-time donation, can be done through Canada Helps. They'll look after the tax receipts. They will do and manage online events for you. They'll do the advertising. They'll put the sign up on the website and sell tickets for you. If you have special appeals that you're wanting to do, for instance, a special high quality video creation, you can put a special page up on Canada Helps and appeal to the public for funds for that. All of this tax deductible. They also have another option that I just found amusing and good when I saw it, and that is that they will manage social fundraising programs and events for you. So if, for instance, you're looking to raise money by having a walkathon or a team-based walk or a run of some kind, they will look after collecting your pledges and managing that whole thing for you. I can talk a little bit also about what Ed was saying about online performance platforms and virtual ticket sales.
Sure, go.
Would you like me to do that?
I would love it if you would do that. That would be wonderful.
Right.
I was going to embroider on that too, but you go ahead.
Okay. The main one that I want to talk about is a Canadian platform called SideDoor, and it's an online performance platform based in Halifax and operated by a woman named Laura Simpson in collaboration with a Vancouver musician named Dan Mangan, who many people might know. Mm-hmm. This organization matches performers with spaces to create shows anytime, anywhere. They talk about this being a different view of community. They say this is just not just online performing, but it is community in a different sense. They have over 1,600 artists and over 500 venues all over the world. They stream performances from venues like living rooms, backyards, parks, barns, farms, just about wherever people are able to perform. They pick up impromptu communities and make real connections. They collect revenue and pay it out according to the agreement that they have with the performers. So it's just grown like topsy. I first learned about SideDoor about a month and a half ago, and now I'm hearing and seeing it everywhere I go. It just seems to really have taken off. There are other online performance platforms as well that are going to be listed on the resources. One of them is called Feel It Live, and the other one is called Stage It. All of the information about SideDoor and these other ones are on the resources page.
And I've just been advised that the resources are now actually up on the website for people who actually want to go there and have a look at them. So one of the other things I was just going to say, Ed, about the ticketing of virtual concerts and so on and so forth, is that, the advantage, of course, is that, like you said, you've got that little password and you can actually not have to attend your concert at that time because, of course, it's recorded. And then for a period of time, you'll still be able to have some access to it. So again, I think we're really making the technology work well for us in all of these different kinds of ways. I just wanted to do a kind of a summary statement here just around the education and about communications and sharing within our organizations. I've really been in a couple of different meetings where members of an organization were kind of caught off guard because fairly important announcements were coming down that they didn't even know it. So again, I just want to encourage everybody to make sure that that your management team is actually connecting and talking, and so that the management team is educated in the same way about the same topics. Any of these things that we were just talking about here today are worth getting people together about, so that when you do come together, everybody has a kind of a common frame of reference there. And then also the communications from the top down, making sure that the actual membership knows what is being said and stuff like that. Because of course, we're making some very, very important management decisions that are going to have a lot of effect. A lot of effect. We know that from the previous town hall. We were talking about the shock and about the grief and so on and so forth of this. So again, just a little, it's not a warning, it's just a little reminder to just keep communicating with your management team and with the people that you're managing, your choristers and so on and so forth, so that everybody has the same sort of base of knowledge and general kind of information. On the further topic of fundraising, by the way, I did want to say that we are very grateful to the BCCF member choirs who have signed up for the British Columbia Choral Federation's annual raffle. Those of you who are not aware of what this is a very, very large project. It's a fundraising project, which we administer on behalf of our choirs who sign up. And this is a means of fundraising, and we would normally have done that in May, but we've had an extension now until November. It's quite an effective means of collecting some money easily within your organization, because as I said, we do the administration of it, and all you have to do is manage the handling of the tickets. And some organizations are very, very clever in their handling of the tickets. I don't think I'm revealing anybody's secrets when I say that some choirs have actually purchased the tickets for the cash prizes in the name of their own organization. And it's not unusual, has not been unusual in the past for a choir to actually win, prize money. So not only do you get the money that you got from the sale of the ticket, but you actually have a chance of even winning one of the prizes. So you can be fairly clever about all of that. All right, so just keeping a little eye on the clock here, I wanted to just talk about a little bit of the overhead costs that we're looking at. I know, Nina, that you have probably the larger administrative function here, so maybe you could talk a little bit about that, please.
Sure, about overall, yeah.
I was specifically thinking about the contractors, right? I know you have
Yes.
employees, but some of us have contractors, and I mean, this is part of our overhead.
Yeah, well, we have a whole kind of giant grab bag of things with our organization in terms of employees and contractors. But, again, I think Linda's talked very well towards, budgeting intelligently for our next year. So obviously within the context of that, and I think you have to keep the overall health of your organization at the top priority. But within that, I really believe that it's our sort of obligation as arts organizations to continue to be employing and or contracting our artists as much as we can, right? So that we're kind of keeping and maintaining this ecosystem. For that, I think, again, as we talked about, I think you're going to have to go back to your contracts, and there might be some revisions that have to happen in terms of a little bit more strict sort of policies around what happens if there's cancellation, et cetera. But again, I think as any of us who have tried to run virtual rehearsals to this point know, is that it's incredibly costly in terms of the resources on our staff and the energy that needs to go into it and the hours. So, I know that we're finding for our own planning going forward is that we might be saving money on things like rentals and et cetera, but we actually need more staff to run rehearsals to the best of our abilities. So we're really trying to focus on that. And, if you're looking at not presenting virtual rehearsals next year, or sort of just being quiet for a year, that's fine as well. But I would encourage you, if it's within your finances of your organization, to look at how you can use your artists creatively, right? And see if you can still run some workshops with them, or do some other, your artists are smart people too. Like, ask them what they think they can bring to your organization. And I know for us, we've found that you come up with some really amazing ideas that we're really excited about going forward.
I'm glad. Yeah, no, I think that's perfect. Apropos of the extra time and labor that it takes. I mean, when you were referring to resources, staff resources, you really mean time.
Just yeah.
And,
Well,
and
I'm trying to think of a gender neutral way to say manpower, and I can't come up with one. But so yeah,
how
the
about,
time that
yeah,
it takes your staff to do the work.
yeah, brain power, something like that.
Hmm.
One of the costs, of course, of doing this kind of business online is going to be that we are going to be needing more and more licensing to happen. And this is not a cost necessarily that you might have anticipated in your budget. I mean, it might be you may have anticipated some cost, but I suspect that it's going to become a larger cost in the go forward. So just a reminder that all of the things that we want to put up online, um, you really need to check with the copyright holders about that, right? You need to get back to the people who own those copyrights. In some instances, that may be the composer, it may be the arranger, if these are like public domain things or if it's original work. If not, if it's actually something that is copyright and so on and so forth, you need to do your homework and actually get out there and find out about the licensing. There's a lot of licensing things online right at this moment. All right. So again, it's both a budgetary thing and a time thing because some of these things can take a rather long time. There's no obligation on the copyright holder to allow you to use anything or to stream anything and so on and so forth. So you want to get way ahead of the curve there and get your information in to these people so that they can work with it. I will say, however, that there's also a lot of publishers who are quite happy to give synchronization rights to you because many of them consider it a form of advertising. And so, you know, people are being savvy about that kind of stuff as well. So, okay, so we just wanted to do a little bit of time here as we're coming up on the completion of our hour, just talking about taking care of ourselves with the forward planning, something around rehearsals, schedules, projects, and so on and so forth. Anybody want to jump on this one? Linda?
Well, I spoke a little bit about that in what I was saying about budgeting.
Yep.
I think the thing that we all need to do is be looking at what our options are. What can we do? What can we do in person within the provincial guidelines? Recognizing the need for precautions. What can we do in person? I believe Dr. Schwandt talked about the possibility of small groups up to 6 people getting together, being properly distanced and being able to sing in a well-ventilated area. That in-person kind of opportunity exists, but it needs to be done safely and carefully. The rehearsals on a virtual level, I think Nina probably knows more about all of that than I do because she's been up to her elbows in it. But the world is really wide open to us now once we get past the shock of what all of this has done for us in our choral communities. We just were caught off guard and we didn't know what we were doing, and now here we are getting our feet back under us and looking forward. And it's just an amazing thing to see the number of different kinds of things that people are coming up with and things that they're doing to keep on keeping on. Catherine, I think it was Kathleen Allen said when she was interviewed on The Current, singing is in Canadians' DNA. We may be thinking that we're shut down right now, but Canadians will find a way to sing. Nina, do you want to talk about virtual rehearsals and things?
I
believe that we're going to speak about that at the next town hall, which I think will be in 3 weeks, not 2, but I will certainly speak about it at that point.
Yeah. Can you just give us a taste, though, of what that is? Because I know my understanding is that this is going to be a huge draw on our resources.
Yeah, so I mean, we've experimented with a couple different ways of running rehearsals over Zoom for the sort of the last 8 weeks of our season, and I know a lot of other choirs did. So, I mean, it is inherently different because we're still not at the point where you can sing simultaneously. Although I did hear today on one of the Chorus America webinars that there's some developments in the works that might be here by the fall that might give us some more functionality. So that's exciting. But you know, like we've kind of really used it as an opportunity to capitalize on a lot of the skills that you wouldn't be able to normally focus on. And we've found that for the most part, people really appreciate it a lot because they miss the community. You know, like they recognize that we can't sing and they're saddened by that, but they're still happy that they get that routine of showing up every Tuesday night or whatever it is, and is seeing their friends and seeing the conductor and, you know, and maybe listening to some music together. So I know it's frustrating for a lot of us because we feel the limitations of it, but there's a lot of possibilities. I think I heard a great phrase this afternoon. We're talking about Zoom, you know, virtual rehearsals, which was, you know, she was saying that you need to capitalize and not apologize, which I think a lot of us feel like we're just so aware of the shortcomings that we're always apologizing for it. But there's a lot that you can do that's really great and that we can move forward on.
Yeah. Okay. And so, Ed, what is your company, your theater troupe, been doing to just sort of maintain community there, to sort of sustain connections?
We have, because I also, and in addition to everything else that I do, I am the publicist for Many Hats Theater Company. And what we have done, we, royal we, have started posting photos on social media, mostly on our Facebook page, usually rotational on a weekly or so basis of past performances. We've done 61 shows, productions over the past 13 years. And what I do is I've been posting a little précis of those along with some photographs and then changing the photographs on our mastheads. And that keeps people in touch. We have not used our mailing list extensively because first of all, we don't have a lot to tell them. And our demographic is such, we have several thousand people on our mailing list. But we have, the demographic is such that, how shall I tactfully say, they get really excited if they get too many emails. So that is about it right now. We are
Okay, very good.
We are counting the minutes.
All right. Speaking of,
while I have the floor for a moment, Willi, if I can, I want to go back to something you said, and Linda touched on it, as did Nina, and that is the communication. And you talked about communication within your organization, but I want to go back and expand that to say communication with all your stakeholders, and that would include things like granting agencies, donors, as well as the government. If there's some kind of an issue with one of the programs, the absolute worst thing you can do is not talk to them. So do bear that in mind.
Yeah, very good. Okay, well, I'm keeping my eye on the clock here, and I see that we need to wind this up. So I want to just start by thanking our presenters. Nina, thank you very much for your work with us on this project, and I look forward to the virtual rehearsal topic in our next town hall.
Absolutely. And I'll just throw in, I mean, if people are feeling lost and want to talk and discuss more of these resources that we've like blown through here, I'm available. You're very welcome to email me and we can have a phone chat and talk through things.
Sure. Okay, so Nina's email contact information is going to be out there. And Ed, thank you again for wading into the pool with us. It's good to see you again.
Thank you, thank you. And the same as with Nina, my email address is going to be on the list. Feel free. Thank you.
Exactly. Good. All right. And Linda, I wanted to say thank you to you last because I think you have a little something that you wanted to add to the end of this conversation, and I think it would be great. So let me thank you first for your work with us on this. It's been great to reconnect, and I know you know some of these people already, and it's just been wonderful to see you there. Anyway, so thank you for all of that.
Thank you. And I'll echo what Nina and Ed are saying. If anyone wants to talk about any of this or just brainstorm ideas, I'm ready, willing, and able.
Very good. Okay. Thanks also to the University of Victoria through the offices of Dr. Adam Kahn for facilitating this. And I didn't do this last time, and I'm going to get it right this time. I want to make sure that we acknowledge the behind-the-scenes BCCF people who have made this evening possible for us. Those would be Andy Rice, our communications and webmaster, Christine Chapejo, who is on the board and volunteers in the communications portfolio, Rhonda Hagerman, of course, who is our treasurer of our organization, and Bridget Coults, who is responsible for all of these virtual town halls. It's, in the absence of doing in-person workshops, guess what? This just dropped into her lap. So thank you to everybody there. We are going to be sending out a little notice from the BC Arts Alliance. They're trying to get a survey. They're trying to get some information out of our people. So please check in. You should be seeing something about that. And also, I just want to draw your attention to a massive, massive resource list at the singingnetwork.ca/COVID-19. You'll find some stuff there. Next week coming up, by the way, the national organization, Choral Canada, is going to be doing roundtables. And so I would encourage you all to check out the schedule of the roundtables that are happening. They're happening Monday through Friday, starting next week for various kinds of choirs and so on and so forth. Our own virtual town hall follows on Thursday, the 9th of July, on the topic, as we said, of virtual rehearsals. So on behalf of the Choral Federation, I just want to say thank you once again to everybody, to all of our listeners for hanging in with us. I hope that you've got some new ideas going. And as I said, it seems to me that all of us are open to carrying on any part of this conversation at any time. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.